the commandments, the Ten Commandments, and no extramarital sex or anything. So it seems like the priest has to really do due diligence at the time when anybody comes to him for whatever type of thing along those lines. Jules, you said yesterday that priests would be forced. This may result in priests being forced to bless any and all same-sex couples, regardless of their intention or affirmation or anything, who come forward, repentant or not. And it seems this third group of bishops that you brought up, the Austrian bishops, have actually proved you right. What are they saying?
Well, very disturbing reports from Austria, Brad, that the Archbishop and the head of the Austrian Bishops' Conference, Archbishop Franz Lechner, has basically said that, he was asked this in an interview, and he said basically you, meaning a priest, can no longer say no when a same-sex couple comes and asks you for a blessing. Now, there's been a bit of kerfuffle over this because he was then later asked by a Swiss Catholic portal if he really meant that, and he fudged a bit, and he said, you can't oblige somebody to, bless another person, that sort of thing. But you can see where this is all leading with bishops who are pushing this agenda, particularly in places like Germany and Austria, getting very upset if a lone conservative clergyman somewhere in the sticks decides not to go along with this agenda.
Now, there was also Archbishop Lstecki, Milwaukee. There was a Chaldean bishop here, Kalabat, that were both talking about in the individual sense. If somebody in an individual, if they were a person in an individual, as an individual, comes up to be blessed, and seeking to do God's will and all this, that they, would extend the blessing. But that's really not what Fernandez was talking about, because Fernandez right off the top talks about couples in irregular unions and those in same-sex couples. So we're talking about couples, and he talks about that several times throughout the document, right, in the context of a couple coming forward.
Absolutely, and I was talking to a Latin scholar and an Italian this morning, Lorenzo Murrone, and Lorenzo was telling me how the word coppia repeatedly pops up. He was reading the Italian version, which is the original, and he's saying in almost, all cases, we use the word coppia in Italian to refer to romantic relationships between two persons. So the Italian media, of course, is running with this idea that the Vatican has now approved, blessings for couples in romantic, sexual, whatever relationships. Interestingly, the Swiss bishops have come up with their statement, not just supporting Pope Francis, but applauding this new declaration. And believe it or not, their statement has an image of it has a homoerotic image of two men, the faces of two men coming together very closely, almost kissing each other. And this is in the background against the background of a church. So, I mean, for the Pope's plaintiffs out there, you can very well tell what the world and the church, particularly the ecclesiastical hierarchy, pushing the agenda all this while. In fact, my sources in Rome are now telling me that the reason Pope Francis has issued this document is because sites like Church Militant and others were constantly raising the question, why is he not disciplining errant German and Flemish bishops for so flagrantly violating, Catholic teaching on homosexuality when they blessed gay couples en masse in 3 seasons. So now, of course, the bar is open, folks, 24 hours a day.
Yeah, and again, if I was a upstart young priest and a couple came to me like that, I would have to say, well, what are we blessing here? Are we blessing your relationship? Are you guys intending to seek God's grace to somehow be strong enough to separate and all that? If that's what you're seeking, then I'll individually bless each of you, but not as a couple, because the optics there, Fernandez was worried about the optics. We don't want to legitimize anything. So blessing them as a couple, in private, singularly, who express intentions of wanting to do God's will with the rest of their life, of course. And that's Kazakhstan bishop said the same thing. Anybody seeking a blessing for that. So if that's the interpretation given to Fernandez, which is everybody saying, oh, that must be, but then why is this couple? Why is it a couple coming up? Where is the priest doing his due diligence, or is that just assumed that he will do due diligence and find out what are we blessing? Are we really just affirming you and your unchasteness, or are we actually trying to bring you into a fuller realization of living the Ten Commandments? Jules, finally, your favorite pro-LGBT priest out there, the illustrious Father James Martin, he's blessing the couple, the romantic couples out there. Tell us about that.
Well, I quite like Father James Martin. He is very honest, He doesn't hide what his real agenda is. I'm not being facetious here. And also, he is a master at using the media. I mean, as someone from a media background myself, secular media background, I was absolutely, overawed by the way when I saw that he'd managed to get the New York Times to report on this story. He actually phoned this couple, Jason Steideljack and his husband, so-called Damien Steideljack. One is 44 and the other is 38. They live in Manhattan West Side. He phoned them and he said, hey, would you guys like a blessing? I can't give you a formal liturgical blessing, but I can bless you. So don't wear a suit and a tie, and let's not pretend that it's a marriage. Oh, they are already married, by the way. This is a Catholic couple, Brad, who are civilly married as husband and husband, man and man. And they get the New York Times, great photographer there, and they get these picture whole story in the New York Times on this. And Father James Martin, guess what? We're talking about non-liturgical blessings, Brad. Father James Martin uses the most famous and the most historic liturgical blessing that has been used by Jews and Christians for the last 4,000 years, depending on when you date the passage from Numbers chapter 6. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace. And if that is not liturgical blessing, my name is not Jules Gomez.
Yeah, and it really wasn't done in private. You get the New York Times and all over social media there, and you see a Catholic priest in front of a married gay couple and giving them a blessing like that. How are the optics not going to be that you're legitimizing this? Whether you have your stole on or not, whether it's in a church or not, it's just the optics there. So I would say, once again, that would violate Fernandez's statement, that he's actually giving bad optics to this, causing scandal out there, and scandal at least to the couple themselves, that they actually can go to hell, that they will actually spend an eternity separated from God if they continually to live their unchaste lifestyle, as all of us would. And that actually comes from St. Paul himself in the Bible, so they'll have to answer for that on Judgment Day. Well, in 1973, Our Lady of Akita, in an approved apparition, actually said the work of the devil will infiltrate even into the church in such a way that one will see cardinal against cardinal, a cardinal opposing cardinal, and bishop against other bishops. Was she speaking about these times? I don't totally know, but we certainly do see some bishops against bishops out there and cardinals against cardinals, and it seems like something worth contemplating, because Our Lady of Akita went on to say, if men do not repent, there will be a punishment greater than the deluge. The fire will fall from the sky and will wipe out a great part of humanity. The survivors will find themselves so desolate that they will envy the dead. So not the end of the world, but it sounds like we might be getting, want to get things straightened out here anyway. So Jules, thank you so much for staying on top of this really controversial story.
Thank you, Brad.
I believe you've been blessed by this message. Please do not forget to subscribe, like, and share our videos. God bless you as we see you in our next video.